And welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Buckeye Boggs. That guy over there, that's our special guest tonight. That's Dan the Rocket Man Savage. And Dan, you got a pretty cool podcast. Now, I'm going to toot your horn a little bit, if that's all right.
Okay.
Best Mac podcast out there. Hands down, it's not even close. It's the
Okay.
best. Is that all
One out
right?
of, I think, what do we have? 5 other Mac podcasts right now, something like that.
It's not a lot, but
Yeah.
it's okay. We're gonna grow. We're gonna get there. Everything's gonna be all right on that front. But no, I really enjoy listening to you guys. You guys have a good dynamic. It's a lot of fun to listen to. So why don't you, before we get started, tell everybody where they can find your guys' podcast?
You guys can find us on X at MBG Launchpad. Also, Spotify, Apple, wherever you can find podcasts, we're there. Also part of the College Huddle with you guys, and we're growing rapidly.
Yeah, so that baby's gonna launch here in literally a couple weeks. It's
hmm
we tried to keep it hush, but man, it's just the excitement that has been building. It's really hard to keep that under the wraps, and so there's a lot of good things that are building behind the scenes that we're super excited. And this is just a taste of what everybody's gonna get when this thing launches and there we go, launches. See, you
Yeah.
come on the
There you
show
go.
and I'm already speaking your language. How about that?
Sounds great.
All right, Dan. So Toledo, Ohio. I go there quite often, believe it or not. My wife and I actually like it up in Toledo, Ohio. There's a lot of cool things in Northwest Ohio that we like to partake in. And Grand Rapids, Ohio is probably one of the coolest little secret towns in our state that no one really knows about.
For
So
sure.
we like to go up there once a year. Maumee Bay is another great location that we like to attend. And so Toledo, Ohio is like this where last week we had Cincinnati and they kind of look at themselves as a state all unto themselves. Toledo is Ohio. We literally almost had a war based off of you guys. So going
Yeah.
way back, the
The
malicious.
Upper Peninsula, I mean, yeah, I don't know if Michigan got the good end of the trade or not. The weather here is a little nicer, but they got, it's beautiful up there. So
At the
I
time,
guess that's,
Toledo was a big deal. So
yeah,
Ohio won that one, but the Toledo is, believe it or not, for people who don't know their geography, is closer to Ann Arbor than Columbus, Ohio. Even
Mhm,
though it is Ohio, they are closer. So there is a big mix of Ohio State fans and Michigan fans and some Notre Dame fans because Toledo's a big Catholic city as well.
for
And
sure.
then you have Rocket fans all in this melting pot of a city. And then you got Toledo fans who are also fans of one of those three as well.
Mhm.
Explain for everybody the dynamic of this city when you look at the sports scene.
It's definitely a city that does not bleed midnight blue and gold. Um, you know what? And Michigan's starting to take our colors. They used to have a different color shade of yellow. It used to be maize. Now they're taking our colors. We don't like that. Um, but as far as the city breaks down, I would say 40% Buckeyes. I'd say 40, maybe 30 for Michigan, 10 for Notre Dame. Old Catholics are everywhere. And then 20% just split between whichever Big Ten alumni brought them to the city for work or Toledo and Bowling Green. Um, we definitely compete with you guys when you guys are playing on TV and we're trying to get fans in the Glass Bowl. It's not easy, but recently our athletic directors have been pretty good about, sticking us on a different time slot. Or if you guys are playing early, we're throwing you on the big screen in lot 10 for the tailgaters to get their Buckeye fill before the game and then head on into the game. So, um, no, it's a melting pot for sure. The Big Ten just rules the Midwest regardless. But we maybe can't compete on the field with you guys, but we kind of know our place. And for the record, 1-0 against Michigan and Penn State all time.
Yeah, you gotta throw that in there. And and MAC champions very often. I mean,
Yeah.
Toledo's up. When you look at the MAC schools, OU seems to be doing pretty well in football, but Toledo seems to kind of be, at least in the Ohio schools in the MAC, the cream of the crop. Now, what's also interesting about Toledo is if you've ever driven up towards Toledo, you'll pass Bowling Green, and then you realize how close those two schools are to one another. Ann Arbor and Columbus, Ohio are, a couple hours from one another if you drive, about 3.5, 4 hours, depending on traffic.
Mhm.
Bowling Green and Toledo, 25 minutes, 20 minutes max,
Yeah.
depending on how the traffic is. Explain to everybody that, because that is, you want to talk about close. You can almost see each other's stadium lights from one another. You're that close.
Yeah, I mean, we have a missile on the northeast side of our stadium pointed down to the 50-yard line of Deutsch Perry Stadium in Bowling Green. I mean, it's pretty serious, but we're still smaller schools, so the city in general, um, although they embrace that rivalry, ESPN has kind of pushed us towards midweek to get that as a national. It's a fun game nationally, but attendance and we like that. We want that game to be on the weekend, and we're finally getting that again this year. So. Um, Toledo's rivals, we got Bowling Green, Northern Illinois. We call them the non-rivals, as both have been very competitive with each other over the last 2 decades. And then the next teams that we look at are definitely the Buckeyes and the Wolverines.
There you go. All right, beautiful. All right, let's talk a little bit about recruiting inside Toledo. Now, you have MAC level kids in the state of Ohio, and we do a lot of talking about recruiting on this show. And I have said for a long time, and I think you will agree with this comment. 3-star kids from the state of Ohio, in a lot of ways, especially up front in the trenches, are almost like 4-star kids from the South, especially on the lines.
Yeah.
It is a more rugged, old school style of football that's played here in the Midwest. More and more high schools are starting to open up now with the onslaught of 7-on-7s and things like that. But the city of Toledo, it is not like Cincinnati. It is not like Cleveland. You can't, you don't see 4 stars and even your occasional 5-star falling off the tree here. Uh, Toledo's a little bit different. It's a more of an old school, but that doesn't mean the talent's not there. It is still there. There's a couple big names we're going to talk about in just a minute, but give everybody kind of an overview of recruiting on the football side of things inside the city and outer belt of Toledo there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the city of Toledo was near the top 50 in overall populations up until the 70s. So there was always a lot of people here, a lot of implants, business, blue collar industry. So the city league for years and years had a ton of talent. Like one of my buddies' fathers played for the Buckeyes. He went to, I think, Toledo Scott, and he played cornerback at Toledo. I mean, Jimmy Jackson, I know it's basketball, but there's just so much talent that's come out of Northwest Ohio. Diebler, I mean, Diebler is a very hot name right now at Ohio State.
Sure.
So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's overwhelmingly talented. Like when I graduated high school in 2012, we had 2 or 3 teams in the top 5 in the state. Toledo Whitmer, who we'll get to here soon. I mean, they had offensive lineman who played at Toledo and is still in the NFL, Storm Norton. Chris Wormley, who played up at the school up north. He was an offensive line, big ass dude. They had wide receiver Leroy Alexander went to Nebraska. So there is definitely some of those bigger schools like Whitmer, Findlay, Anthony Wayne, Perrysburg that have some big old boys and they're ready to bang heads in the trenches for sure. Um, but you know, if Florida is going to have that speed and all that DB and wide receiver talent, we got to be known for something up here. So yeah, I definitely say I lean O line, D line. Tons of good football players, and although the population of the city is declining a little bit, there's still a lot of kids that grow up rooting for the Ohio State and grow up rooting for Notre Dame, and they want to be that next guy that's on the field on ESPN playing every week in front of millions of fans. So I would say, yeah, Northwest Ohio still has a ton of talent, and I'm glad to be here to talk about it.
Yeah, so let's dive into some of that talent that's coming out in 2025. And obviously, we would be amiss if we didn't start with this guy right here. The number 3 overall recruit in the state of Ohio, according to the most recent updated 247 composite rankings, Carter Lowe, big offensive lineman, committed to Ohio State. He was number 2 in the state until they did their most recent rankings, and Trey McNutt leapfrogged him. Still probably on the verge of being a 5-star. He's ranked 33rd nationally. 6'5", 290 pounds, and he plays at that high school that you mentioned, Whitmer, and they're in Toledo, Ohio. Give us a little bit of a background of his school and about what you know about Carter Lowe.
So Whitmer is a powerhouse. They play in an 8,000 seat, football stadium, which for here that knocks everybody. It's not even close to. I mean, you feel like you're playing a Division II college game when you go to see Whitmer play. Last year the team wasn't great. The league structure just got messed up. They actually just joined the Northern Lakes League, which isn't really necessarily great. They used to play in the Three Rivers Athletic Conference, but some of them Catholic schools went, and now they play in the Detroit League. So they're in a kind of a down league. The quarterback, I don't think really showcased the offensive line very well. He only threw like 11 touchdowns. So pretty much camps is what you're going to be able to like figure out where he lands as far as 4-star fringe 5. Big kid, athletic as hell. He's like has like a nice second block. Like if he gets pushed back a little bit, he kind of stays stays off his heels and can hit again. Um, I think Ohio State would be a terrific landing place for him. And although their offense wasn't awesome this year, they bring back that quarterback. I think they'll be a little bit better in 2024. And then, yeah, he might skyrocket up to one of the top 15 players in the country.
Wow, yeah. He like I said, he's borderline or fringe 5-star, like you said, and his film's pretty impressive. Like a lot of kids in the Midwest, they are tremendous at run blocking, and
Mhm.
they seem to be a step behind in pass blocking. I think that's just kind of the lay of the land in high school football up here in the north, but not something that he can't do because he is extremely athletic, like you mentioned, has really good feet, and that's the thing you look for an offensive lineman is what kind of footwork do they have. Now this next cat, I know nothing about him. I was just scrolling through and I said Oregon, Ohio. I know where that's at. That's down there over there in Toledo. Now this guy Mason, and I think it's Hinchell. Is that how you pronounce that? Hinchell.
Heinkel.
Heinchel. Thank you.
Yep.
Um, he is committed to Pitt, so he's going to be going over to the ACC. Ranked 58th overall as a quarterback. He's 48th in the state of Ohio. Really good size for a quarterback. 6'2", 200 pounds. This is the kind of kid, Dan, that I would, as a Ohio guy, I would like to see him stay at home. Like keep him near somewhere here in the MAC before going to the ACC. But it sounds like he's just too good. Like he's gonna go Power 5 somewhere.
Yeah, he's another one of those kids that I think is thriving on his camp visits. Clay is not known for their football. They're like have an incredible wrestling program, incredible baseball history. I mean, Octors, they've had a ton of guys. They've had a few go to the MLB. They were 4-7 in league. Again, it's so like they would lose some games high scoring. But Whitmer beat him pretty soundly last year, so it's just so tough to watch high school games. And you're like, well, they scored 30. He looked great, but they're throwing to a bunch of 5'9", 180-pound kids. So,
Sure.
but the fact that he garnered Power 5 interest from a school like Oregon Clay, it's pretty impressive. I don't think Toledo offered him, but I think Toledo kind of has a lot of things in the works with some other more national kids. Like our quarterback this season at Toledo, he's a 4-star transfer from Georgia Tech. He's been in the program a few years, so I think Toledo's kind of set at that position. But Bowling Green could definitely take a stab. They need all help they can get down there.
So you brought it up. So let's talk about it a little bit. What is Toledo as far as the university? What is their philosophy when it comes to recruiting the city of Toledo and then recruiting in general?
I think the main point is to touch base with a lot of the 4 and 5-star kids that leave and make a good impression and stick with them. That doesn't mean we're going to get them on first try, but you have a guy like Dallas Gant who
Hmm.
went to my alma mater, St. John's Jesuit in Toledo. Full ride, 4-star guy, goes to Ohio State, doesn't see the playing time I think he wanted, comes to Toledo and has 116 tackles each season with us. and now is looking to get drafted in a few weeks. We had another one, Bryant Koback, who went to Kentucky. He's from Springfield here in Holland, Ohio. Went to Kentucky. There was some recruiting connections there. Comes back as a 4,000-yard career rusher at Toledo. He was absolutely a stud, a long line of studs Toledo's had at the running back position. And I think that's really important when kids feel like, oh, I want to go away from home, and maybe that's not the right decision. They have a fallback plan, and why not play for a MAC contending or championship program at the University of Toledo with a great fan base, great stadium, and we're putting guys in the NFL too. We've got a guy that's maybe a top 15 pick in this next draft, Quinyon Mitchell. So, yeah, I just think good connections, and also we've had incredible luck retaining coaches. Jason Candle's going into like his ninth season
Yeah,
as a head coach.
some of us
That's
we're trying
not,
to pluck him as an offensive coordinator, but we'll stick with Chip
yeah,
Kelly. But yeah, good for
yeah,
you guys. We weren't able to do so.
yeah. That stability is huge. And Matt Campbell was there for a while before him, and all the guys that are not all the guys, but half of the staff still are Matt Campbell guys, which is the Mount Union coaching tree.
Yep.
So yeah, I think just stability, winning program. Toledo hasn't gone below 500 since 2009. So, um, but overall, we've had a lot of like player of the year type guys from the state of Michigan, which is not quite as good as the state of Ohio for recruiting. And then we still go down and get Florida kids. We have a kid from Cardinal Mooney coming in next year. So, um, Toledo does their best. I think the last class we had the 66th ranked composite class, so one of the top 5 group of 5 classes, and then it's the 82nd overall class because they dinged our portal class so bad. Um, but I kind of have a beef with how that's. I don't know how they rank that. They
Yeah.
switch stars based on if you go up a level or down. So it's really tough to see, but talent wise, Toledo has it. NFL players. What else could you ask for as a 3-star recruit in state of Ohio?
And when it comes to recruiting now, you have to mention transfer portal and NIL. So what does Toledo have going on in those departments? So you mentioned a lot of the transfer portal, bringing those kids home, as a part of your recruiting philosophy. But what's the NIL look like for a MAC school in Toledo?
Toledo actually jumped on their collective stuff pretty quickly. They have a Friends of Rocky. They have the 1923 Society, which is like a 5-year program for donors to donate $25,000 over 5 years. And they have like a blue and gold something or other for the men's basketball and women's basketball programs too. So I think about half of the MAC schools have collectives. Toledo has a few different ones. And we just gave some women's basketball players 3-year leases on cars. I mean, that women's basketball players don't get a ton of NIL everywhere, but you see that we just beat Michigan in back-to-back years in basketball. I think the ladies deserve a car. Um, so yeah, there is some money to go around. But I mean, as you guys saw last year, Daquan Finn, quite the player.
Yeah.
He ended up at Baylor for probably 6 figures, some amount, to give him a shot to get drafted coming out next year. So I understand it when there's
Yep.
better opportunities on the horizon.
So the collective calls up Dan Savage and says, "Hey, you're doing such a great job podcasting. We want you to lease a car. What car are we going to see Dan Savage driving around Toledo in?"
Oh, something sweet, like maybe like a G wagon or something, something big.
There you go. Nice. All right. These are all great, but let's circle back around and let's focus on Ohio State and Michigan and Toledo there. If there is a player that is uh 4-star, French 5-star in Toledo, and you knew both schools are coming after him without looking up any information on who his family was fans of or anything like that or his school connection, where in your mind do you think he's going to go to if you before looking anything up, just based off of he's a Toledo kid and he's getting recruited by Ohio State and Michigan, and
You
why?
know what? I mean, there's a like I said about the Kentucky, like Vince Marrow has huge Toledo ties. He's one of the best recruiters in the country. He loves the state of Ohio, as I mean the Cincinnati dude probably told you. Like
Yeah.
Kentucky's coming after our guys, so like that's a weird team that I think would have an outside shot. Um, but the Buckeyes rule the Buckeye State. They really do. Now lately, I could see where maybe you would be attracted to Harbaugh's weirdness and sleepovers and whatever. But nowadays, like I would say after next year, Ohio State beats Michigan, Ryan Day's back on the right track. 7 out of 10 are going to choose Ohio State over Michigan.
Yeah, yeah, you brought up Kentucky. Okay, so let's go there because this is something we've been talking about here. They are hot to trot on a lot of guys here in the state of Ohio who are like that player who doesn't get an Ohio State offer but's good enough to play in the Big 10. And so that guy used to go to Michigan State. That was D'Antonio's bread and butter, baby. He's
Yep.
like, I'm going to take everybody Ohio State doesn't offer, and then I'm going to beat Michigan with them because they already hate them. And then I'm going to beat Ohio State with them because now they have a chip on their shoulder. And then Luke Fickle went down I-71 to Cincinnati, and he took that same philosophy. And since Luke went to Wisconsin, I'm telling you, Kentucky's up here all the time recruiting. Like they
Yep.
are up here all the time. I really think they took D'Antonio's blueprint and they said that's how we're going to compete in the SEC, and it seems like it's working, Dan.
Yeah, I mean the SEC is just so gung ho on their Texas, Georgia, Florida recruiting that there is an avenue for 3 star. Because if you're a 3 star, 4 star kid, you might not even be looking at Ohio State or Michigan, but also Indiana, Illinois. Those schools aren't really intriguing. And if you have your eyes set on the Big Ten or SEC, which is as big lately, I think Kentucky is kind of has a lot to sell. They say, hey, you get to play Alabama every other year and Tennessee and Florida. Like it's really impressive what they've done. But also, as a Toledo fan, I mean, Toledo goes up against Kentucky and Illinois and Pitt more than just about any other school, even over most MAC schools. So it's frustrating when they do grab someone, less out of Northwest Ohio, but just the state of Ohio in general. Um, but then again, shoot your shot. I mean,
Yeah,
you're winning 10 games at Kentucky. That's super impressive. So,
it really
and
is. It
yeah.
is. And, for a basketball school that a lot of Kentucky fans will tell you right now, they've turned into a football school all of a sudden.
Mhm.
So they're riding that wave. All right, Dan, what kind of questions you got for me, man? Is there anything that Toledo fans would like to know about us Buckeyes?
So, in the transfer portal, Toledo got a kid by the name of Jacob James.
Mm-hmm.
His the most playing time he ever got was against Toledo in 2022.
Yeah.
Um, we sadly let you guys get a lot of bench players in that game late. What does he bring to a school like Toledo? Did he play much at all beyond early in the year against their MAC foes and stuff like that?
No, Jacob was on the. He was competing for the two deep on the
Okay,
offensive line, and I don't wanna understate this, but our offensive line was our weakness last year. Okay,
sure.
um, so that's not like saying too deep at Ohio State on the offensive line is not not something to not be proud of, but at the same time, this is a guy who couldn't find playing time and couldn't find his way into solidifying himself to get that playing time later in his career. Ohio State's got one of the better strength and conditioning programs in the country. We call it the Body by Mickey program. Like you come in and he can ride you, man, and you will change your body overnight. So you can rest assured he's probably one of the stronger guys on the team already. So he knows how to train his body. As far as the technique and things, he's going to be taught great technique. He should be able to slide into a starting position for you guys and be solid. Is he going to be your best offensive lineman? I don't know. I don't know how you guys look on the offensive line. I wouldn't say it's guaranteed he is, but he's definitely going to help you, especially in the running game. He's a good road grader.
Okay, that's good because I mean Toledo just has a stable of running backs every single year. We just lost our bell cow Penny Boone, but he's down in Louisville now, and we lost our one of our tackles, Vinny Scurry, to Texas Tech. So Toledo's definitely going to rebuild a little bit in the trenches up front this year. I was just curious because that's a Ohio State guy you definitely know a little bit about. And then we have, I mean, how well do you follow high school in Columbus?
Pretty closely. I live in just north of Columbus in Delaware County. My
Okay.
wife works for the Olentangy School District, so the Olentangys produce usually somewhere between 5 to 10 Division I kids a year between the four high schools that are in that school district.
Okay. Yeah, we got a kid from Gahanna Lincoln coming in. Last name's
Gahanna,
Grimm.
Gahanna, Lincoln. Yep.
Yeah, Gahanna. He's, I mean, one of our higher rated guys in the class, higher 3-star. We had another one too.
Gahanna's a
Can't.
great Gahanna's a good program. They're in southeast Columbus in the Outer Belt. That is a program that has produced a lot of Division I kids recently. So he's obviously well taught. He's going to step in to your program and not be blown away, as a freshman. So hopefully he can crack some playing time for you.
Gotcha. And then yeah, we have two more, but Cameron Gwynn from St. Francis de Sales. He's a D lineman, pretty good size. How is St. Francis down there?
It's the big Catholic school
Okay.
in Ohio. Luke Fickle is from that high school. So, and I believe Ryan Day's son is the quarterback there. So
Oh wow.
yeah, so it's a school that you kind of have to keep your eye on, because they can do the private school thing and recruit people. So,
Sure.
but yeah, a lot of good talent. I think, if I'm not mistaken, is he a lineman? Ain't he a big lineman?
He's a DL, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Big boy, like unhumanly large human being. And so
Okay.
I think you guys got a good one there as well too. So we kind of if you look at high school football around Columbus, Ohio, you see a lot of the Big Ten schools in here all the time. You've got Indiana. Northwestern loves to recruit Columbus, Ohio. You see usually a lot of kids who are, pretty good students too, will go to Northwestern
Sure.
for academics as well as athletics. Um, Penn State's over here a lot. James Franklin flew a chopper onto a field for a high school game to see a quarterback play. Of course, we're relentless on that one for them, for doing that. But yeah, you'll see a lot of Big Ten schools come around Columbus, Ohio, and then I know there's a lot of OU grads that kind of make their way from Athens to Columbus, and so there's a small contingent of Bobcat fans that you'll find around Central Ohio, and so they do quite a bit of recruiting around Columbus, Ohio too. So you'll see some kids trickleate their way down over to Athens, Ohio, but usually those are the kids who like to do a lot of partying too, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, anywhere I go and there's an OU person, they're always yelling, OU, oh yeah, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like they're loud kids down there, but they haven't won a MAC championship in football since 1968, so I'll hold
Ouch!
that over their
Ouch!
heads. Yeah.
Very good, man. Hey, Dan, tell everybody again where they can find your guys' podcast. Great podcast.
Twitter/X at MBG Launchpad. And then anywhere else you can find podcasts, just search Midnight Blue and Gold Launchpad podcast. I know it's a mouthful. I've only been on for a few months, but as a Toledo super fan, I fit in perfectly. And it's like a comedy show, too. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It's a really good show, guys. I highly recommend you guys check it out. Even if it's just one time to see what it's like, I think you would enjoy the content they produce over there, guys. All right, please like, share, subscribe. We really do appreciate that. Keeps the channel going, and please put it in the comments section. You ever been to Toledo? What's your stories about Toledo? Are you from Toledo? Who's your favorite player that came from Toledo? We want to hear all of that in this comment section. Also, what do you guys think about Kentucky coming into Ohio, man? Like, this is every time we talk recruiting, like, they are up here all the time talking to these kids. Kentucky is going to be something that everybody, all the Ohio schools and Ohio State, have to keep their eye in. So let us know what you think about that. All right, we're going to see if Dan knows how to do this. Be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH. Sing Carmen, Ohio with all your heart. Till next time, OH!
EDO.
Go Bucks!